In today's biased news, France preps for military involvement in Niger, 2,000 climate protesters get arrested in the Netherlands, and Lula has had enough of parasitic ranchers. As the situation in Niger continues to escalate, the Nigerian authorities have accused France of deploying troops in neighboring West African countries in preparation for military operations by France and ECOWAS. ECOWAS, the regional bloc frequently referred to as an arm of French interest in the region, has made it clear that the military option is not off the table. The Nigerian authorities have once again demanded the departure of French troops from the country, with an official statement calling for, quote, national and international opinion to witness the consequences of this aggressive, underhanded, and contemptuous attitude adopted by France. French President Macron replied, quote, we do not recognize any legitimacy in the statements of the putschists. This is an especially bold statement, as France has regularly recognized and supported African junta leaders so long as they support the interests of French capital. Currently, nearly 1,500 French troops remain in Niger against the will of the popular forces that overthrew the Comprador government of former President Bazoum. In regards to the remaining French troops, Macron stated, quote, if we ever redeploy, I would do so only at the request of President Bazoum. Macron did not comment on the increased presence of French troops in regional neighbors to Niger. Niger continues to be sanctioned by the Western-aligned governments in the region, and an ECOWAS standby force is active for deployment should military intervention be approved by the bloc. Negotiations currently center around the time frame for a transition to civilian rule in Niger, with 9 months being the latest suggestion of the ECOWAS chairman, while the new government previously proposed a 3-year timeline. Regardless, the emphasis of French control over Niger's natural resources and politics stems from a long-standing tradition of neo-colonial and imperialist attitudes, which hope to maintain the interests of French capital in the region. Morocco's deadliest earthquake in over 6 decades has left survivors struggling for food, water, and shelter. The 6.8 magnitude quake has claimed over 2,100 lives, with many survivors spending their 3rd night exposed to the elements in remote mountain villages. The disaster has also damaged Morocco's cultural heritage, including an historic mosque and parts of Marrakesh's old city. International aid has begun to arrive, with Spain, Britain, and the United States sending support teams. The Moroccan government is setting up a fund for victims and reinforcing search and rescue efforts. Over 300,000 people have been affected, and the next few days are crucial for finding survivors. Chinese Premier Li Qiang urged China and Europe to cooperate amid global uncertainties during a meeting with EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at the G20 summit. This call comes as the EU has grown cautious about its engagement with China since 2019. Li emphasized the need to balance risk prevention and cooperation while encouraging a non-discriminatory environment for Chinese firms. He suggested working together in areas like clean energy and green finance, and stressed the importance of China-EU relations for stability in an uncertain world. It remains unclear how long Europe will play by the US's rules when it comes to China. The increasingly warlike United States has recently been called an unreliable partner by European leaders on multiple occasions. The police in the Netherlands detained over 2,000 climate protesters, including minors, in the city of Hague. The protesters were demanding the bare minimum, for the government to stop subsidies, basically corporate welfare, for the fossil fuel industry. There is no longer any debate over whether climate change is real, or that it is driven primarily by human activity. All one has to do is look at the dozens of so-called once-in-a-lifetime natural disasters that are occurring increasingly frequently around the world. Divestment from fossil fuels is non-negotiable if we want to leave a habitable planet for our children. The United States and Saudi Arabia are in discussions to secure access to metals in African countries like Guinea, Namibia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Saudi Arabia plans to invest $15 billion in mining assets in these countries, allowing U.S. companies to buy some of the produced metals, including cobalt and lithium, which are used in electric car batteries and electronics. Both countries are competing with China for these metals, what some are calling the oil of the future. Gaining a foothold in Africa remains the U.S. empire's only hope to give it a shot in the arm and continue limping along as the world's premier economic superpower for a few more decades. President Biden held significant talks with Chinese Premier Li Qiang at the G20 summit in New Delhi, the highest-level dialogue in nearly 10 months. Biden downplayed concerns that China's economic issues might lead to a Taiwan invasion, suggesting that China has a diminished capacity for such actions. He mentioned China's economic challenges, but didn't specify any possible policy changes. Biden stressed his commitment to open communication with China to ease tensions, particularly regarding Taiwan. As always, words are one thing, but actions are another. The US continues to stoke tensions in the region, even going so far as to send a military aid package to Taiwan in July. And to end with some positive news, the left-wing Brazilian government has initiated its largest ever operation, which aims to remove cattle ranchers from indigenous territories in the Amazon. The operation's stated goal is to expel thousands of cows from this area, which saw significant deforestation due to land grabbers during the previous administration under Jair Bolsonaro. The new government, led by Lula da Silva, is taking action to combat deforestation and environmental crimes, utilizing an armed task force working to drive out around 5,000 cattle in a multi-week operation. That's all for today. We'll be back day after tomorrow with more news. If you'd like to see longer episodes with more in-depth analysis, consider becoming a patron so we can grow and expand.